Rebuilding Rutgers from the Ashes is produced by NJ Advanced Media. Subscribe and listen to the show at NJ.com/podcast. Join the conversation on Twitter by using hashtag RebuildingRutgers.
When Patrick Hobbs was hired as Rutgers' new athletic director, he made fundraising a priority. Hobbs knew that if Rutgers wanted to be a player in the Big Ten, it needed to up its incoming donations significantly. The Scarlet Knights needed better facilities, better resources, and better support. What Rutgers needed, what Hobbs wanted, was $100 million. Welcome to Rebuilding Rutgers from the Ashes. I'm Joe Giglio. In this episode, we go in-depth with Patrick Hobbs about his fundraising plan and introduce you to some of the deep-pocketed donors who give money to the Rutgers football program. These donors may never don a Scarlet Knights uniform, but they play a significant role in Rutgers' future. Here is NJ Advanced Media reporter Keith Sargeant.
There was a moment in early 2015 that epitomized Rutgers' struggles to attract big money donors to its athletics program. Rutgers fundraisers had gathered a group of boosters to the Yogi Berra Museum in Montclair. They were hoping to generate the balance of a $3.3 million indoor facility for the baseball and softball programs. A video designed to inspire the donor base was aired, and a top Rutgers fundraiser stood up and shouted, "Now who's ready to write a check?" The response? Crickets. It's no wonder, then, that Rutgers today finds itself with some of the most outdated athletics facilities in the Big Ten in most of its 24 sports. In his first press conference as Rutgers AD last December, Patrick Hobbs declared an economic emergency.
We're not where we need to be. One of the things that it would be great if some of you folks would do is go benchmark a little bit for us. Take a picture of some of the facilities that are out there in the Big Ten and compare them where we are right now. We're not where we need to be.
Thanks to seven-figure donations from two key donors, Rutgers was able to build the baseball and softball facility, now located next to the RAC on the Livingston campus. But any Rutgers insider will tell you it was a struggle to generate even the most modest of financial pledges during an 18-month fundraising drive. Coming up, we'll introduce you to the most influential people who are trying to lift Rutgers into the upper crust of the Big Ten by writing big checks. Some names are probably familiar, others likely not. But first, let's go back to Rutgers' fundraising troubles. How did the university get into this mess? Through a series of fundraising embarrassments. In 2008, Rutgers approved a plan for a $102 million renovation of its football stadium. The initiative, fueled by then Rutgers football coach Greg Schiano and AD Bob Mulcahy, was a signal that the Scarlet Knights were ready to battle in college football's proverbial arms race, where gaudy football facilities can be a difference maker in landing top-flight recruits. Problem was, the school was counting on $30 million from private sources to finance the 12,000-seat expansion. After the initial call for donations fell flat, Governor John Corzine and State Senator Ray Lesniak pledged to raise the $30 million needed. But less than a year later, even with Governor Corzine agreeing to donate $1 million out of his own pocket, the fundraising initiative reportedly fell about $20 million short of its goal. The stadium was expanded, but not before critics blasted Rutgers for borrowing $100 million for the project. Lesniak remembers it well.
Well, I do remember. Way back then, there was a lot of self-doubting on the board of governors about any expansion because of there was some adverse publicity by the Ledger. They did a expose, so to speak, on the finances of the athletic department, which weren't in good shape at that time. And there was a lot of trepidation of moving forward, but Governor Corzine and I were able to convince them to do the expansion, and without that, we would still be stuck in Never Never Land.
In his previous role as a law school dean at Seton Hall, Hobbs had completed a $25 million campaign over a 5-year period that university officials called the largest and most successful fundraising initiative in the department's history. But in order to accomplish his stated goal at Rutgers, he would need 4 times that amount, and he wouldn't have 5 years to do so. Also keep in mind, he toiled in relative obscurity at Seton Hall. Now Rutgers insiders, fans, and media would be keeping score of his progress, meaning failure would be met with criticism from every direction. His predecessors refused to say publicly what the fundraising goals were because they feared falling short. Why then would Hobbs push forward on a $100 million drive he's calling the Our Big Ten Build? And why would he say the number out loud?
Because we need it, right? We need it. And so you step into a situation, and we're in the Big Ten. I know the resources that they have. I had actually not toured the facilities, so I actually didn't know sort of how wide the gap actually was between what we have in facilities. But I knew the only way that we're going to close that is we got to go out there and we got to raise money. And I think part of it was an assumption on my part, which turned out to be right, and that is that we have a very, very big alumni base, that they are passionate about Rutgers University. There is capacity there, and maybe some of them haven't been asked, some of them had been asked, some of them had been, what Sarah did, I think, which also was very different than what had been done previously, was she and her team spent time sort of laying out their vision and their plan for Rutgers, and demonstrating that there was this big resource gap that we had to close. And so when you came in, I know I can't wait 2 or 3 or 4 years to say, I'm going to get to know everybody. I'm going to get to really do some benchmarking against other institutions. No, the heck with that. We've got almost 500,000 alums. Many of them done incredibly well. They care and they're passionate about Rutgers. So we should be able to raise $100 million, and frankly, more than $100 million. I mean, that's not going to be the end of it. The $100 million is to get these first few projects going and get those first few projects out of the ground. And then when people see what that investment results in, more people will come in and say, okay, people want to invest in success. They want to invest in winners. And so that's what we're about right now. And we're going to struggle. As we go through and our programs get rebuilt and everything else, there will be those challenges. But as long as they see that what we've said we're going to do, we're executing on, we're going to bring those buildings out of the ground, those buildings are going to have an impact that's different than we've had in the past, then the next wave of people come off the sidelines and the next wave of people after that. And so this is not a 2 or 3 or 4 year building project. This is going to take a decade to do everything we need to do.
The Sarah that Hobbs was referring to is Sarah Baumgartner. She is the deputy AD who was appointed chief athletics fundraiser by former AD Julie Herman in the midst of one of the most tumultuous times in the school's history. Baumgartner's first few months were spent trying to convince donors to buy into Herman's vision. Many were still shocked by the Mike Rice bullying scandal and angered by the ouster of popular AD Tim Pernetti.
I wouldn't say it was difficult. I think the biggest thing when I got here was to make sure that our team that was raising money for us, was grounded, that they trusted me. I mean, I was a new leader hired by Julie, so they had to trust me. They had to, believe in what I thought would be the right vision for the fundraising arm of athletics. And so it was honestly the first thing we did was just get our team together on the same page, aligned. From that point, we laid out our 3 years, how we're going to get to where we need to be in terms of some of our key priorities. We really clarified those priorities. I think we had a lot of different approaches to fundraising. We hadn't really set up truly a great plan, with some strategy behind it. And so I think once the team saw the plan and then they got out there and could start selling that plan, for me, I think, as I saw the donors and started meeting with them, they started having a little bit of confidence in terms of just a plan. So I don't know if it was necessarily, it probably was a lot more difficult than I'm actually thinking back now as I look into it, but it was, I think it was an opportunity. That's why I came to Rutgers, because the opportunity was tremendous. We put together a great plan, great people, made a couple really key hires as well that really helped stabilize the donor base. So Andy Sisti got brought on board, Marco Battaglia, we brought him on board. I think that also showed the Rutgers faithful in the community that, this is going to be a Rutgers family that does this and does it together. And those were some key moments for us that we got some early success and, again, built more confidence, and the snowball started growing, and we, had some great success in the first couple of years.
Hobbs and Baumgartner credit the donor base as a reason why Rutgers was able to surpass the $31 million milestone in 15 weeks. Hobbs said nearly 1,600 people contributed to the ARB Big Ten build since last January, and that includes nearly 300 five-figure gifts and a dozen donations of $1 million or more. Board of Governors Chairman Greg Brown and his wife Anna were among the 3 families who pledged the 3 largest gifts in Rutgers athletics history late last spring. Brown is one of the school's top donors, and his name is on the recruiting pavilion inside Rutgers Football Stadium. In a rare interview, Brown explained why he was among the first major boosters to write a 7-figure check.
The $11 million from you, Towers, Plofker, and Bobby Brown families, great start to the Big Ten build. Was it more than that, though? Was it a show of faith in Pat Hobbs that he's going to get this done? Was it a message to other donors?
Absolutely, all of the above. I think that Pat Hobbs is the perfect athletic director at the perfect time. He's a great blend of academic, law, business, and sports. He's got sound judgment. He's tireless. He understands New Jersey. He has a sensitivity around the political landscape in Trenton, while also knowledgeable and very comfortable with the media in the New York, New Jersey marketplace. And he connects. He's an electric guy who's personable with a lot of substance, who will do what he says he's going to do, and he's an implementer. So he has made a number of changes. It absolutely, Keith, was as much about Pat Hobbs and Chris Ash and Steve Peichel. It's the new regime that I think Rutgers now is very well poised to pursue its entry into the Big Ten.
A 1982 Rutgers graduate, Brown is the CEO of Illinois-based Motorola Solutions. He has a pair of American presidents in his Rolodex, having served both President Obama and George W. Bush. He had a hand in the school's decision to fire Julie Herman and football coach Kyle Flood last November. Brown's goal is to arm his chief appointees with the tools to be successful. For Rutgers athletics, it starts with facilities, and did we mention facilities?
I think it's important. I think it's very important. And look, we don't need to have over-the-top facilities like some of the major Division I programs, but you said it right. Rutgers joined the Big Ten, and when we joined the Big Ten and the CIC on the academic side, we inherently said we're making a commitment to compete. And to compete, you need facilities that allow you to recruit and attract and provide a level of modern training, nutrition, and allow these athletes to condition themselves both physically and mentally. So I think that the Rutgers Football Stadium generally is in good shape through the most recent construction that was done several years ago. Having said that, I think that the training room, the locker room, a reconfiguration of the facilities would be important to be more modern, be more efficient, and have the staff and the athletes be more productive while also serving as a magnet for recruiting. Obviously, the multi-purpose sports facility is critically important, sorely needed. I applaud Senator Lesniak and the legislators in New Jersey for working with Rutgers to make that happen. I think the $100 million big build is appropriate. I think it's a call to action. I think it's a reflection of Pat Hobbs and the commitment of Bob Barchi. You don't solve a problem by running away from it, you run to it. And I think he's highlighted it, outlined it, explained it, and created an enthusiastic vision which we and other donors can get behind.
So what inspired Brown to become a donor to Rutgers athletics?
What first drew me in was Greg Schiano. It was probably his first or second year on the job. He was the youngest Division I coach in the country. I remember meeting him at the stadium, and we took a walk, and he described his vision of what he thought Rutgers could become. I hadn't contributed, I don't think, anything to Rutgers at the time. That was a long time ago. But certainly what initially drew me in was his drive, intensity, and passion for a Jersey guy that I thought was fully committed to changing the landscape of Rutgers football, and it was exciting.
And your first major donation was to the recruiting lounge?
No, I think, well, it depends on how you conclude or how you assess major. Yeah, the first 7-digit donation was to the recruiting lounge. I gave before that in other amounts, but I remember Greg calling me. I was out in Cape Cod and said over the summer, and he said, I need you. We need to build this recruiting pavilion, and I really need you to go all in. It's the first time he ever asked, and we responded, my wife Anna and I responded in kind with another donor that ultimately was reflected in the construction of the recruiting pavilion.
Like Greg Brown, Ron Garuti is a Rutgers donor who's shaping the athletics department. A longtime member of the university's Board of Trustees, Garuti serves on a committee that provides oversight on a department that includes 24 sports, more than 600 athletes, and a $75 million budget. Garuti is a 1967 Rutgers graduate. He built his wealth both as a pediatrician and in the pharmaceutical industry. He and his wife Joanna covered nearly the entire price tag on a $1.65 million strength and conditioning center for the football team.
I love Rutgers, Keith. My wife and I have been donating to Rutgers for years, and we've contributed to personnel salaries, coaches' salaries, scholarships, and with the new administration in athletics under Pat Hobbs, who we all know is a very impressive guy. He inspires a lot of confidence in the future of Rutgers athletics. We met Coach Ash. Actually, it was National Signing Day when we made the commitment to donate the money for the new Strength and Conditioning Center. We bought into Coach Ash's vision for Rutgers football, and strength and conditioning coach Kenny Parker. They have a real vision for how our student athletes need to be trained, not just on the physical things about moving weights around, but mentally and emotionally, and emphasizing competition. So we decided we wanted to do something that would help a lot of student athletes, and our gift now, which I told the players a couple of weeks ago when I spoke to them at the ribbon cutting ceremony, this gift is our gift to you. We've had a lot of thank yous over the past few months, and they're wonderful. People come up to us and just say, yeah, thank you for the gift. And I told the players that I want them to look at the Strength and Conditioning Center as our gift to them, because they really work hard and they do a lot on behalf of Rutgers. When I was here, I always like to tell people we were playing Lehigh, Lafayette, and Bucknell, and I never could have dreamed that we'd be in the Big Ten. We're in the Big Ten now. We have everything in place to be successful. We're in the right conference. We have the right athletic director. We have the right coaches. And now is the time. And I like to talk about this being a window of opportunity. Windows don't stay open forever. The Rutgers donor base, the Rutgers fan base has to step up. We're playing in the big leagues now. We're sending our kids out to play against the best players in the country. And we need to have facilities that go along with competing at that level. And that's why I think it's the time. There's an urgency to now. We've got to get some of the buildings that are in our athletic strategic plan built. And I would encourage all Rutgers fans, please come out, make a contribution, support your team, support your university, so that we can compete at the highest level of college athletics.
On the heels of a breakthrough football season in 2006, Rutgers reported a then-record $5.8 million in contributions. A decade later, that number nearly tripled to $14.4 million, despite mediocre results on the field and an array of controversies off the field. But if you're wondering why Hobbs is optimistic that Rutgers will be able to complete the $100 million fundraising drive, it's because in just 15 weeks, Rutgers collected $31 million in private gifts. On November 1st, Rutgers landed an $18 million investment from RWJ Barnabas. And while school officials did not call it a fundraising gift, CEO Barry Ostrowski compared it to recent partnerships with the New Jersey Devils and Seton Hall Athletics.
We are a New Jersey enterprise. We are committed to making New Jersey a better place to live and ensuring that we can invest in our communities in New Jersey. Obviously, Rutgers is the biggest. As I said before, an internationally renowned educational organization and scientific research organization. So for us, it's about choosing partners. And so we think by being a partner of Rutgers at every level, we will be pursuing our mission to make New Jersey better. In this particular case, it focuses on sports medicine and wellness, ensuring that student athletes have the very best when it comes to their needs. So to us, it's just another indication, we hope, of our committed mission to New Jersey.
In all, Rutgers has nearly 9,500 people in its donor pool. School officials say about 80% of them gave gifts of $1,000 or less.
I think it's the same whether you are somebody who's had great success and you sit on a lot of resources, or you are somebody who is writing a check out of your weekly paycheck. It goes back to, again, impactful, right? Those who've done really well in life have done well in life because they've invested well and they've made good decisions about where to put those dollars to have success. Whether it's growing their own wealth or it's building a company when they employ lots of people, they want to invest in winners. So our challenge and what we try to do every day is say, here's how we're going to use your resources. You've done very, very well in life. We need you to make that reach gift now. This is the time, if you truly care about Rutgers, to make that impactful gift. And so for many, what we're asking them to consider is the largest gift they have ever made or considered making, and maybe at a factor or multiple of 5 or 10 times their largest previous gift. That's a big ask. And so, but I think and I believe that we're making the case for why that should take place now, and I think that's why we've had the success that we've had.
According to Rutgers' most recent fundraising report, there are about 50 members of the Scarlet Society. That includes anyone who donated $50,000 in 2016 or $1 million in their lifetime. Dom Musso is on the list, and unlike many of the top donors, he didn't graduate from Rutgers. He jokes that he catches hell from Rutgers boosters for having graduated from Villanova.
I think Rutgers has been kind of it's been underappreciated for what it is and what it brings to the table. Getting into the B1G is much bigger than just football. I mean, the academics truly is a big, big thing. And from our perspective, we need to do our part. We need to help all of our programs be competitive. And when you look at that, we've got a ton. Rutgers has just a ton of alums. We just need to get them all active. We need to get all the businesses in New Jersey involved and active. It was just great to see the $10 million gift that just came through. We need more and more local New Jersey businesses to step up.
Musso owns 8 New Jersey-based companies. He began donating to Rutgers in the early 2000s. Even though he's topped $1 million in gifts over the past decade, you won't see his name on the side of any new facilities. That's because his money goes to the Rutgers Leadership Academy, a privately funded program that teaches life skills to athletes.
Well, I did a lot of reading back in the mid-2004, 2005 time period. I was kind of amazed at the number of pro athletes who wind up not having a nickel to their name within 2 or 3 years after leaving the professional ranks. And I was also kind of amazed at how many really top-notch college athletes struggle when they get out of school. Many just are very, very successful, but there's a lot that struggle. So that got me interested in the life skills, and so I kind of started there. And now, I also give a lot to Villanova. So at Villanova, I endowed the Clay Center, and down at Villanova, I do have, I guess I have 4 or 5 scholarships down there. So for me, it's just about making the world a little bit better place, kind of giving back to people that helped me. And Rutgers is a state university, so my whole family's here, my companies are here, and we need to rally around the flag. And we should be damn proud of what we have.
John Newman has also taken a broader approach toward donating. He gives 5 figures annually to Our Vision, the school's digital media production that airs games.
Because my dad and I were connected, and because we found it difficult, before ESPN apps and before you can watch everything on streaming, to allow my money to be targeted to something that would enable people to be able to watch no matter where they were. And what is morphed into now with the coming of social media is this is how universities and organizations communicate directly with all their constituencies. They create content, a lot of it is video, and to see that morph into that over time, now Our Vision has become a production house, not only for content for Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, all those types of things, but also that is the in-house production house that produces games for BTN to Go and for BTN Plus. It allows students to get involved, and having been involved on the student side in the student media when I was here, that was just natural for me.
Newman is a public relations professional who lives in Virginia. His earliest Rutgers memories are from attending games with his dad in the late 60s. His passion grew when he worked at the Rutgers student radio station in the late 1970s.
I think as people decide what they want to do, sometimes it's more important not how much money you donate, but where you put those energies. The reason why we wanted to do it for Our Vision is we could make an impact not only for people who wanted to see games from outside of the area, but for coaches at the Olympic sports, for folks who are considering going to Rutgers, and their families want to watch games. So from a recruiting standpoint, it was a pretty big deal, especially for the Olympic sports coaches, that they were able to have people see their games from as far away as Europe.
Newman was one of the first 25 members of a crowdfunding initiative called the Captain's Program, a campaign designed for donors to take ownership in inspiring others to pledge a monthly gift for 5 years. It's one of the many grassroots efforts for the $100 million Rutgers Big Ten build.
I think the biggest thing is that we want a lot of owners in this process, right? We talk about family in the very beginning in terms of a couple years ago when I got here. So I think part of it is that we have a limited team in terms of how big we can go, how many people can we touch, every day. And so we've recruited these captains. It's again, talk about symbolism. It's not about the dollars. It's about participation. It's about the voices that are out there talking about the story. And peer-to-peer is such a powerful conversation when you have a donor that's talking to a prospective donor, and they can say, I'm in, I raise my hand, I'm investing, and why don't you do it? So I think that peer-to-peer aspect is powerful, and we're trying to, we want to grow that to 100 captains and hopefully more. But I just think ultimately it comes back to having more owners in this process, people who feel like they've invested, they believe in it, they want to be part of it. And so the more people we get in doing that and then sharing the story for us, the better off we'll be. It's just casting the net wider.
Margaret Sherman is one of the top fundraisers for the Captain's Program. One conversation at a football tailgate, and it's easy to see why. Her passion for giving is topped only by her desire to have the best tailgate in the blue lot. For the Michigan game, she purchased an additional tailgating spot just so a band could set up a stage and play live music. And she's not even a Rutgers alum.
No, my husband's a Rutgers alum. Okay. I didn't know anything about Rutgers football until I met my husband almost 14 years ago. Okay. And he asked me to come to a football game. And I was like, oh, college football. I wasn't even a college football fan. And I got here, and I've always loved the color red. I like to tailgate, and I like to cook. And here I am, and I've become a donor, a captain, fundraiser. I'm the queen of tailgating, and I am truly like the rah-rah person. I don't ever almost say anything negative about Rutgers and get down. I always look at the glass as half full and see the positive side of it all. I'm not a $10 a month person, but I'm not a $5,000 a month person. I mean, I'm somewhere in there. I think that we're the average person. I mean, I've got a mortgage. I've got a kid in pharmacy school. I don't have, I'd like to retire someday. So I don't have, I love the Garudis. I think it's fabulous that they're able to donate $1.5 million for a weight room. I would love to be able to do that, but I can't. So that's their legacy, and I'd like to know that I did a little bit of something. And that's why I never ask my donors what they're donating, because I don't care. It's not my business. I love the fact that they're willing to help, they're willing to donate, and that's all that's really important, because every little bit does help.
It's a philosophy echoed by Greg Brown, who believes there's never been a better time to give to Rutgers athletics.
You should donate to Rutgers athletics if you believe in it, and if it has an emotional connection to you and you believe that this concept of the student athlete is important. If you don't believe in the student athlete, you shouldn't. But Rutgers has, the 8th oldest school in the country, 67,000 students strong. It's our 250th anniversary. Obama just came and did first time we've ever had a sitting president do the commencement. We're implementing the strategic plan. Barchi's in his 5th year, and we've got now the leadership team on the athletic side under Bob that I think reflects Rutgers' commitment and seriousness to this multi-decade journey, and you couldn't pick a better time to jump in right now and get behind Rutgers athletics.
Keith, the one thing I took out of that was just how far Rutgers was behind to where they're trying to go now. For you, as this whole process played out and you talked to all these different people, did you realize how far they were behind and where they're trying to get to now? I mean, how much have they closed the gap on this goal they have?
I did realize how far they were behind, because if you think about it, a decade ago, they were raising money at about an $8 million a year clip. That was a high watermark. Now they're about $14 million, a year ago. In comparison to Ohio State, Michigan, a lot of the Big Ten programs are well over $20, $25, $30 million in fundraising. It's clear. I mean, during Julie Herman's tenure, one of the big questions was, well, how many 7-figure checks has she raised? And to my knowledge, to anyone who really knew Julie, even the proponents of Julie, everyone conceded that she did not get one check for over $1 million during her 3 years. So, yeah, you could tell that they were far behind.
Now, I bet a lot of our listeners right now really are in tune with this and pay attention to how much Rutgers can raise, but some probably aren't, right? This is a little bit foreign to them. So I'll just ask this question to you, because I think it's a base question maybe our listeners for this episode need to know. How important is this, to winning and being a sustainable Big Ten program, to have big-time fundraising?
At a school like Rutgers, it's vital. It's no secret that they're well behind the Michigans, Ohio States, in the facilities arms race. Their operational budget is $75 million. They're relying on a huge subsidy, which is anywhere between $20 and $35 million. There are people throughout the university community who want that subsidy to be cut well in half. It's not going to get to that point until 2021, until the Big Ten money, the checks start rolling in order to make up for that shortfall, in order to pay for operational support, for scholarships, and obviously for facilities. They need to rely on donors, on big checks. There's no way, quite frankly, that they're going to be able to build these facilities that they want to do without getting a huge amount of fundraising, probably over $100 million.
When you had all these conversations, Keith, with all of these donors, and sometimes their spouses as well, and people with them, what stood out to you? Because they're fascinating to me, and I think to a lot of fans, the people who donate to these programs, who have the money to do it and really care about the program so much. What struck you about these people? Did they just care that much, and they have the resources to help?
Yes. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Their passion, their love for Rutgers. Now, keep in mind that the most influential people at Rutgers are board of governors, board of trustees. These are the decision makers at the school. And essentially, a board of governor or board of trustee, they're a donor. That's what they are. They've been given these high power positions that have a lot of influence at the university because they've given large amounts of money. Now, of those board of governors, I would say probably a handful are athletics donors. A year ago, while throughout the entire, Julie Herman, mess, and Kyle Flood, despite, all the player arrests and, all the, public embarrassments with Julie Herman, there were still people who had written huge amount of checks, who were influential people, who were board of governors, who could not separate the idea that Rutgers was creating their own mess and that they loved Rutgers so much that they blamed the media for a lot of it. I was getting a whole lot of "you're part of the blame." So to answer your question, I think the one thing that really stood out was just the passion and how many of these people who, write these big checks bleed scarlet.
The one name that we didn't hear in there that I think a lot of people listening right now, a lot of Rutgers fans are familiar with, they've heard his name, they know of him, Jeff Towers. Tell us about Jeff Towers, who he is, what he does, and maybe why we didn't hear from him in this particular episode.
Jeff Towers is a booster who a donor, he and Amy Towers came onto the scene. I believe the time frame was late in 2013. They were really inspired to donate to the football program, to Kyle Flood. They became really close with Kyle Flood. At one point in early 2015, Kyle Flood tried to make Jeff Towers his recruiting coordinator. And even though it was probably kosher, per NCAA rules, there was a backlash. We reported it first, and essentially he didn't become the recruiting coordinator. So he was ticked off at us for that. But the funny thing is, Joe, is Jeff Towers, there are people who really think the world of him. And if you think about just a donor in a nutshell, they love Rutgers. And clearly by his actions and the money that he's given, the fact that he's giving upwards of over $5 million, it really speaks highly of just, he's not a Rutgers grad. He's from Nebraska. His wife went to Wisconsin. They have really no ties whatsoever to Rutgers. They clearly have grown an affinity toward Rutgers. They want Rutgers to be successful. But yeah, to answer your question, he didn't want to participate. I understand why he didn't want to participate, but it would be foolish to not discuss Jeff Towers in some length.
One of the final people we heard from was Greg Brown, and I believe he said there's no better time than now to donate to Rutgers. Keith, you've been covering this program and this school for a long time with their athletics. Do you agree with that? Do you think Rutgers is in the place now where other donors feel the same way as Greg Brown, and maybe this thing will keep moving in a very good direction for that program?
Now, they've been in the Big Ten since 2014, right? I think part of it is the leadership. Tim Pernetti was a very popular figure among their donor base. After he was ousted, the way it happened, there was a large amount of donors who were very disjointed from the program, never really fully committed to Julie Herman, her vision. I think part of it is the Big Ten, but I think more of it speaks to the leadership of Pat Hobbs, Sarah Baumgartner, and just the leadership in place right now. The vision, Pat Hobbs has really certainly inspired a lot of people over the last 10 or 11 months. I think it's a credit to him and, his team And I think that's what Greg Brown was alluding to when he said time is now. I think he pointed to Pat Hobbs as really being the central reason why he believes that.
If the future is bright, these people are a big reason why. Thanks, Keith. Next time on the season finale of Rebuilding Rutgers from the Ashes. For the past few weeks, you've heard about the attempts to create a new culture at Rutgers and turn the football program around. But will it actually happen? Can it actually happen? Join us for a roundtable discussion on the future of Rutgers football under Chris Ash.